This episode of Trek Geeks is brought to you by our friends at Fansets. See their incredible array of officially licensed Star Trek pins and collectibles at fansets.com, and stay tuned for a special discount code just for Trek Geeks listeners. Fansets. We are Star Trek.
Hi, this is Andy Robinson, Elam Garrick on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and you are listening to the biggest little podcast this side of the Gamma Quadrant. It's the Trek Geeks podcast with Dan Davidson and Bill Smith. Failure to tune in would not sit well with the Obsidian Order.
From the Podfleet Command Special Command Center in the Ninth State of the Union, it's the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant, your independent Star Trek podcast. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Trek Geeks. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith. It's so great to be here. It's so great to be back. And by back, I mean from my trip, but you guys will hear about that at some point. We have a fantastic topic on hand for you tonight, and a special guest with which to delve into this topic. And, well, I don't have to tell you about it. I can let my partner in crime tell you about it. And, well, he's the other half of our See It or Skip It episode. He's the lovely and talented Dan Davidson. And Dan, welcome aboard, buddy. I'm always excited for this topic.
It's one of the topics that I think both the listeners and the hosts have really started to love above everything else with Trek Geeks. And thank you for the introduction, Bill. I really appreciate it. And of course, I'm talking about See It or Skip It. It's really a great thing. And here we are, season 4 of Deep Space Niner.
No more Niners. No more Niners.
I got enough of those in Vegas. No. Very excited. Deep Space Nine season 4 is just an amazing season in itself. And we're going to talk about it tonight. And it's not just going to be you and I. Oh, no, it's not. And we've got somebody very special joining us, the one and only New York Times bestselling author, Dayton Ward, ladies and gentlemen, will be joining us for See It or Skip It season 4.
Oh, that's fantastic. Dayton's going to be a special guest geek for the full hour.
I love that.
And, whoa, take it easy there, Tim Taylor.
Sorry.
And it's always a joy to bring somebody in who has no idea what's going to happen with one of these things.
Exactly.
Because it is a bit of restrained chaos with you and me when we do one of these.
When we do one of these, how about anytime we do anything?
All right, that's fair. I'll buy that. I'll buy that. One of the great things about See It or Skip It is we get lots of input from people on episodes they would see or skip. Mm-hmm. And Dan, how might people let us know how they might see or skip a various episode from DS9 Season 4?
I just love your segues are something of legend, my friend. It is very easy to get in contact with us. Just head right on over to trekgeeks.com/contact, and there you'll find a variety of ways to send both Bill or I a message about anything you want to talk about. You can leave us voicemail, you can Skype chat us, you can fill out the contact form and type away to leave us a message, or even easier, just click the big blue button on the right side of the website and leave us a voice message using SpeakPipe. And as always, Camp Kittimer is right out there on Facebook for you to join up and take part in all the fun. There's Star Trek Talks, there's pictures, there's contests, there's polls, there's the Friday commute celebration, and just a whole bunch of fun stuff going on all the time over there. We love the people that are at Camp Kittimer, and we'd like you to be part of it too. So just head right on over to facebook.com/groups/Camp Kittimer, and one of our wonderful admins, Heather, Jackie, or Dan, will let you right in on all the fun. But Bill, it's very, very important. I really have to point this out.
Yeah.
Please remember that any comments or messages that you leave us in any of these places may be used in a future episode.
That was lovely. I could listen to you do that all day.
I wanted to give it a little romantic air this time, I think I succeeded.
Does this mean I have to buy you flowers?
Again? You mean again?
Dan, as we set to drop this, Labor Day weekend is fast approaching here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And that means Dragon Con is occurring in Atlanta this weekend. And if anybody happens to be going to Dragon Con, is going to participate in some of the stuff on the Trek track, let us know. We'd love to hear how it went and hear your stories of Dragon Con, certainly one of the biggest cons of the year in the country. So with that, we will take a quick break and be right back. We don't have any news today per se, but we do have a special announcement, something that we are incredibly fortunate to participate in with a dear friend of ours.
Yes, fortunate is an understatement. We're so honored and thrilled. As many people may or may not know, our good friend Vic Mignogna from Star Trek Continues is in the midst of an amazing project in which he is creating the audiobook version of Mark Cushman with Susan Osborne's 3-volume set, These Are the Voyages. It's going to be really an incredible get together of a whole bunch of people involved in Star Trek way back from the 60s all the way up to present day with Star Trek Continues, doing the voices from various people from the original series. And I got to say, Bill, we are so honored to be part of this audiobook conglomeration, I guess might be a good way to put it together. I don't even know if that's a real word, but I'm going to go with it. You are going to be doing the voice of Mr. Gary Lockwood, and I will be voicing Mr. Jeffrey Hunter. And I am so excited that we are involved in this. We cannot thank Vic enough for bringing us on board, and we're really looking forward to see how the whole thing comes together.
You know, for anyone who hasn't seen these books, and you really should because they're fantastic throughout it, these are the voyagesbooks.com. They are a history of the original series season by season. And Mark Cushman went back and went through some of Gene's documents and also, did an incredible array of interviews that almost amounts to a verbal history of each season of TOS. Mm-hmm. Complete with ratings information and all those things. And so it was an amazing project to start with. And now the audiobook version, I don't think could have been handed off to a better choice in Vic Mignogna. So like you said, Dan, it is our incredible honor to be a small part of this audiobook, mm-hmm. to voice 2 legendary individuals from Star Trek, and Gary Lockwood and Jeff Hunter. And I can't wait to talk to Vic about it on the podcast at some point, or even just to hear your dulcet tones emanating from my headphones.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody who's listened to any of the appearances that Vic has been on Trek Geeks knows that he has some amazing stories to tell about Star Trek Continues, and he already has some amazing stories to tell about putting this audiobook version of These Are the Voyages together. One of them being a great story about Mr. Clint Howard, who he just had at his studio just a couple of days ago to record some of the passages in this book. So I'm sure he's going to have some great additional stories to tell us when we do have him on, hopefully in the near future, to talk about the book, because I think it's going to be coming out in 2019, early, if I remember correctly.
Well, here's hoping. People like Dorothy Fontana read, her own excerpts from the book. Mm-hmm. Joe D'Augusta, Clint Howard, like you said, and then a whole bunch of people that Vic has assembled to read various parts in the audiobook. So it's pretty exciting. It's thesearethevoyagesbooks.com, and we hope everybody will check it out. And again, we have Vic on. We can't wait to talk about it and let everyone know more about it.
Can't wait. Hey listeners, this week's episode is being brought to you by Fansets. With new Star Trek pins being released twice a month, you're never going to run out of awesome new pins to display at home or at work or on yourself. Just don't hurt yourself when you put the pin in your shirt like I do. This week, we're going to offer a special 15% discount off your entire order at fansets.com by simply entering the word DS9 Worf at checkout, all capital letters. That's DS, the number 9, and then Worf. This code will be available until Monday on midnight on Monday, September 3rd. So don't delay, because Fansets is pinpoint accuracy. And we thank our friends at Fansets for sponsoring this week's episodes and putting up with the fact that I can't talk.
Well, I don't think anyone's surprised by the fact that you can't talk. I got to say, so I'm on the Fansets website right now, and I'm looking at some of the pins that are out there. And I got to tell you, Dan, I'm still crushing on that William Shatner autograph pin. It's fantastic. He has hand signed each and every one of those. Mm-hmm. And then there are some of the other pins that they rolled out at Las Vegas at STLV that are now on the website, like the LLAP, the Live Long and Prosper Salute pin, which I love. The Vulcan Idic pin.
Yes.
It looks gorgeous. I have it.
I do.
And it is so brilliant and shiny and big. Oh my God. And I got to say, I love the new Odo in a bucket pin. That's become one of my favorites. I mean, it's really cool because it's Odo's bucket, which we've seen on Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. And then it looks like, gelatinous Odo, and it turns into regular Odo. And I think it's a fantastic looking pin.
I love that pin so much that I think I might have Renee sign that someday at a convention. It's going to be kind of tiny writing because he's got a long name, but they really nailed it with that one. It looks fantastic.
But there's the new black and white version of the To Boldly Go pin, which I love. I mean, so many people watched Star Trek in black and white when it first came out. And I think this is a wonderful salute to how some people's fandom started originally. I mean, I have the color pin too, but I got to say, man, I love that black and white pin.
It's great. And as people start listening to this, when the episode drops, this coming weekend, it's the first of the month, which means a new pin's going to be available, and it's going to be one of your favorites, buddy. The Refit Enterprise is scheduled for release on the 1st.
Oh, that is this coming weekend as we record this. I'm not going to lie. As soon as that is available, I'm placing my order right away. And I can't wait. I got to have that thing.
Can I give you a little advice?
Yeah.
You might not have to order it. Somebody might have already planned on getting it for you.
Oh, buddy, you're the best. Well, I hope you used your special Fansets discount offer code, which this week, of course, is DS9 Worf for 15% off and of your entire order, which is fantastic. Of course, Fansets is going to Fansets is going to ship anywhere. That's how awesome they are. And Dan, we gather once again to consider one of the fan favorite topics here on Trek Geeks over the last couple of years, and that is, of course, our storied See It or Skip It episodes. These have become a lot of fun to do, man.
Oh my God, these are not only a fan favorite, they are a Bill and Dan favorite, I think. Without hesitation, whenever we talk about a See It or Skip It coming up, we both get excited. We have a great time going through our checklist. And one of the other reasons why it's so much fun to do See It or Skip It is because we get to bring somebody in to help referee our back and forth for whether or not we like these episodes or not. And this week is really special. We've had him over on Discovering Trek before. He is a New York Times best-selling author from awesome books such as Drastic Measures from Discovery, which is just amazing, to the Hidden Universe travel guides of the Klingon Empire and Planet Vulcan, of course, and one of Bill's favorite novels, Headlong Flight. English is hard. It is our pleasure, Bill, to once again welcome Dayton Ward to one of our podcasts. And this is the first time on Trek Geeks, I think, Dayton, isn't it?
I think it is. How are you doing?
Well, we're doing better now that you're here, because now I don't have to listen to Bill the entire time. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, now, let me see if I have this right. You brought me on to be a referee, which implies adulting or maturity in some manner.
At least at a level higher than we do it.
Manage your expectations.
Yeah, it's a low bar.
I will do my best not to trip over it.
And it's actually quite funny because after we had you on Discovering Trek, we had such a great time that one of the first things we said after we disconnected that night was, "Oh my God, we got to have Dayton on for one of the See It or Skip It's because it would just be a blast." So here we are.
Well, let's see what happens.
Well, and indeed we will. And unfortunately, Dayton, you have the unenviable task of reining in us tonight. So you're going to progress us through the season with each episode, and then we'll kind of weigh in on whether we'd see it or skip it. But I mean, the conceit here is that it's Star Trek. We're going to watch it anyway. This is just sort of a fun way to go through the season and talk about the episodes. So you can alternate however you like. You can call on Dan first all the time or not. It doesn't matter. And then at some point I'll go through and I'll give the reactions from our Camp Kittimer Facebook group, which is usually pretty interesting. And I think this season will be no exception.
Okay.
Well, all right. Well, with that, why don't we get started with episode 1?
All right, away we go. Episode 1 is now. Are we doing this as 2-parter or 1 2-hour season premiere?
I think we'll do it in 2 parts because that's how they listed in Netflix.
Okay, I can't remember if it was a 2-hour premiere or not. Anyway, so Way of the Warrior, Part 1. A Klingon fleet arrives on its way to expand the Klingon Empire at the expense of the Cardassians in the face of the Dominion threat. And Worf is brought to DS9 to negotiate. All right, Dan, let's start with you. What do you think? See it or skip it?
Well, how can it not be a see it? Great entry like that. Of course, Worf coming back into the Star Trek universe. Michael Dorn does a great job. I definitely gave this a see it. I remember how excited I was before the season started because the promos that they were showing on television would show the Klingon symbol in the backdrop of space at warp speed, and that the Klingons were coming back. And so I thought it was just a great way to open the season. What do you think, Bill?
Oh, I have to agree with you. I mean, I wasn't all that sold on Worf coming on board Deep Space Nine to start with, but I really liked how they brought him on board. It showed that we were going to see Worf a little differently. A great way to kick off the season. I felt like this was DS9 firmly declaring that from here on in, this is what this series is going to be like, and I think it does it very well. So for me, this is a definite see it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to side with both of you guys. Obviously, I mean, I was the same way. When I heard Worf was coming on, I was wondering if it was just going to be a gimmick that would not work, or if they would do what they had already demonstrated they could do and take the characters in crazy directions that we don't necessarily anticipate. I think they started off pretty strong here.
Now, it might surprise everyone to know that Camp Kittimer actually agrees with us completely. 100% of the respondents, which I think is rare for a season premiere, said they would see this episode.
Well, I'm glad they're seeing it our way. All right, so, I mean, it's easy. We can move straight into part 2. The description is last time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And, so it's part 2. Everything kicks off where we left off. So we'll throw it to Bill this time.
I think that this is one of the 2-parters that has one of the best conclusions. And I'm glad that Worf is sticking around. I love the upgrades to the station in this episode. And if this storyline is really any kind of indicator, I think season 4 is going to be a fantastic ride for See It or Skip It. So as you might have guessed, Dan, this is a see it for me.
Yes, we are in agreement again. I can see this being a common theme with season 4.
Yeah.
I gave it a see it. It's like you said, it's a great conclusion to the season opener. All of the photon torpedoes, the launchers that they have on the station now, and all of the work that they did for the possible Dominion threat now get to be faced off with the Klingons. Special effects were awesome, and the storyline sets up for just an amazing season. So, and seasons, plural, of DS9. So I definitely gave it a see it. What about you, Dayton?
Well, I'm definitely going to give it a see it. And I think we've overlooked one of the very key elements of the 4th season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is Ben Sisko has shaved his head.
Yes.
Grown his beard back. He's hawking space. We all know it's on now. So
Love that aspect.
I absolutely agree. I mean, that was one of my favorite parts of season, the end of season 3, beginning of season 4 is when the goatee came back and then the head got shaved, because I'm like, all right, it's on, Dominion. Come and get it. My
head now, you can tell I'm serious.
That's right. Unlike Dan, when he shaves his head, he just really kind of looks dumber. Hey-o! Now we're 2 for 2 with Camp Kittimer, by the way. 100% of respondents said they would see part 2 of The Way of the Warrior. That has never happened before. Usually with a 2-parter, there are some people who drop off. So this is Camp Kittimer history on See It or Skip It, Dan.
It is history. It's historical, and I'm glad that you're a part of it, Bill, even though you just called me dumb.
I calls them like I sees them. Yet we digress.
Yes, we do.
All right. Well, that was easy. I got a feeling we're going to see a lot of this as we drive through this season.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I really don't understand anybody that argues with the next episode for the season. The Visitor. An elderly Jake Sisko relates the story of how he lost his father to a temporal displacement accident. Take it away, Dan.
Well, I think Bill and I have both talked about this before. This may be the best episode of Star Trek ever, of all series in any season. Tony Todd, it is a very bold statement, but it's just so powerful. Tony Todd is brilliant. The bond between father and son in this episode is simply storytelling perfection, in my opinion. And we get to see Captain Nog, so there's always that too. So it's definitely a see it for me, Bill.
We've talked about this one, like you said, Dan, many times. And not only is this a must-see episode of Deep Space Nine, to me, I think that this is Star Trek's finest hour. For me, and this is my statement, your mileage may vary. For me, this episode is better than Sitting on the Edge of Forever. I think it's the most beautiful love story in all of Star Trek, and that's why. It's an absolute see it for me. But like I said, your mileage may marry. Mary? Your mileage may vary.
I do, Bill.
Marriage. Your mileage may vary, Dayton Ward.
No, I'm not going to diss on it like that. I wouldn't do that to you guys. No, it is a very powerful episode, and it's got to be one of the very best, if not the very, very best Deep Space Nine episode for sure. Whether it ranks as the number one episode of all time, I don't know. I'm ready to have that fight, but it's definitely up there. It is one of the most powerful episodes of Star Trek ever.
It is, absolutely.
In fact, when it was over, I called my dad that night just to see how he was doing.
Oh man, that's nice. Awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That was a good one. All right, so go ahead. What did Camp Kittimer have to say? I can't.
You might be surprised. You would think that with Way of the Warrior 1 and 2 coming in at 100%, that the Visitor might follow that trend, but no, my friends. A mere 91.9% of respondents said they would see the Visitor. 8.1% said they would skip it.
That's amazing.
Banned.
Well, we've talked about this in previous episodes that every now and then there's a response in Camp Kittimer that we just don't get. Because, I guess it's the John Champion rule in effect. Everybody's favorite is somebody's least favorite, or perhaps an episode they don't like as much. And I think that the Visitor is probably a emblematic of that to some extent. But 91 or almost 92% said they would absolutely see it, and I definitely fall on that side.
You know what?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I find interesting, guys, is when I was on John Krikorian's show, Trek Profiles, we talked about the Visitor at length, and one of the things he did not like about it, and I can understand this reasoning, is the episode basically Jake commits suicide at the end, and some people have a hard time with that in television, and it's a sticking point for some people. So I can certainly see why some people might be struck wrong, but it's one of the best episodes ever. It's so powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the things that Star Trek has always done well is take topics that may not be as palatable and present them in a way that really gets us right in the feels.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get where John Krikorian comes down on that. It's an episode that I can't help but weep openly. Right. And I don't mean cry. I mean, I weep during this episode.
Yeah. This is one of those episodes that I use as a primer for someone who's new to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So as one of I try to vary it up in terms of, all right, if you like Star Trek, here's this kind of story, here's this kind of story, here's that kind of story. I try to mix it all up so that we get different types of stories to show just how flexible the setting is.
And the children shall lead.
No.
And with that.
Yeah, really. All right.
Fired.
So moving on to the next episode. Episode 4, Hippocratic Oath. Bashir assists a rogue group of Jem'Hadar attempting to overcome their genetic addiction to Ketracel White. We'll start with Bill this time.
Thank you, sir. I really enjoyed this episode. I think one of the things I appreciate about it is that we've taken the friendship between Miles and Julian and we tested a little bit. Before it was sort of an uneasy friendship, and on this one, they've got a little bit of history behind them now, and then there's a conflict where they've got to kind of get past it and deal with things as Starfleet officers. So I love the Jem'Hadar aspect. I love the the whole Ketracel White story. This is an absolute see it for me, Dan.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite episodes of the season. Actually, it's we finally get to have a story that's very O'Brien Bashir centric instead of it just being a B plot about their relationship and what they're arguing about this week. And I think it's a fantastic Jem'Hadar story, talking about, and we get to learn about their addiction and the genetic addiction that they have to Ketracel White. And I think the title of this episode was really perfectly chosen because we get to see how doctors feel about treating patients, no matter who they are and what side of the line they're on. And I think they do it very well in this episode.
Yeah, this is the first of a handful of episodes this season alone that are going to focus on Bashir. And it's also one of those several episodes where it pits some of the, a couple of the main cast against each other. Mm-hmm. Which is going to become a DS9 staple, sort of like the antithesis of Next Gen, where everybody got along and everybody was happy. You're going to see a lot of this sort of interpersonal conflict throughout the season. What I also like about this, because it kind of gets short-shifted in the or short-sheeted in the description, is this is the first episode where Worf is shown trying to fit in,
right?
Yeah.
With the crew back on the station, and how life on DS9 is so different from life on the Enterprise. And this is the first hint that they are really going to take him in different directions than what he had on Next Gen.
Good, very good point.
So it's a good, strong episode for definitely for Bashir and O'Brien. But let's not forget Worf gets some time to play around too. So, but for me, it's a definite see it.
I'd forgotten about that aspect entirely. I'm glad you brought that up. Looking at Camp Kittimer results, they're really not unlike they were for The Visitor, in that 90% of respondents said that they would watch this episode. So it's interesting to me, the two strong episodes back to back. We've got roughly about a 10% drop off rate there. Just anecdotally, I think that's interesting.
What's interesting about the whole season is even with the Dominion lurking, they're not yet center stage, but a lot of time spent developing characters and character relationships during this season, up to about the halfway point when they flip the script on us a little bit. No, it's a really interesting year.
Oh, without a doubt.
All right, so moving on, we're going to go to Indiscretion. Forced to bring along Dukat on a personal mission to investigate the fate of the Ravenok, Kira discovers the real reason her old enemy wants to accompany her. Dan.
Well, I love Gul Dukat. Everybody knows that. He's just so awesome. I gave this one a see it. It's the first time that we've actually seen the Breen or Princess Leia in disguise, whichever you want to go with, because either one kind of works. It's also the first time we see Zial, who quickly becomes a fan favorite on the series. And Mark Alaimo, as usual, shines as Dukat in this episode. And what I liked about this is it really shows that he believes in family over everything else. And we definitely seen that in the final scene of this episode.
For me, this one's a see it also. I think that this episode is essential in the scope of Dukat and in the scope of Kira and in the scope of Dukat and Kira. Yeah, it's the first time we see Zial, but it's also the foundation of the sort of Dukat-Kira co-parenting of Zial to some degree. Plus, we learn a lot about Cardassia and its internal politics and all of these characters. For me, I think this has to be a see it by far.
Yeah, it's a see it. Like you said, this is the beginning where we start to peel back the layers a little bit on the relationship between Kira and Dukat. It's an interesting character study. And, of course, Zial, like you said, Zial ends up being a fan favorite pretty quickly. And then Princess Leia is an Easter egg. Yeah.
It's that's one of the things that always struck me when I saw that the first time. Like, no, that's not a Breen. That's Carrie Fisher.
And then, of course, back on the station, Cisco and Cassidy their relationship is developing. And we know there's a twist coming with that later on in the year. So,
What?
Yeah. What are you talking about?
What? Spoiler alert!
No, I didn't say anything. I said there's a twist coming.
Well, 85% of the respondents in Camp Kittimer said that they would watch Indiscretion. So that's still very solid. Usually by this point we see a lot of 50s and 60%ers. So season 4 definitely starts off very strong.
What I think is a hard thing to do with this year is that there are so many plot threads that run through multiple episodes.
Yeah.
Not just the stuff with the Dominion, but character arcs.
Right.
Begin in this and then thread through the whole season. And it's hard to single out an episode when you know that there are things going on before and after it that you need to know about to enjoy the individual installment. It's like watching The West Wing, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great analogy.
Yep.
All right. So Rejoined is in our next episode. Dax is reunited with Lenora Khan, whose previous host was the wife of one of Dax's former hosts, Tarias Dax. And the two struggle with their feelings for one another. Let's see. It's Bill. It's your turn.
Well, alrighty. This for me is another one of those essential Deep Space Nine episodes, I think, for all the reasons that everybody states in fandom, whether you see them at conventions or talking online. But I really think the performance by Terry Farrell in this episode really just sends it over the top. This is really one of her best episodes as Dax, and I think she really shines in this episode. So for me, Dan, this is 100% see it.
Yes, 100% see it. Wow, we're 6 for 6 so far.
I know.
And like you said, it's always talked about. I remember the controversy when this episode first aired, and it's like, Jesus, so what? It was a beautiful and tender moment when Dax kissed Lenara Khan in their quarters. And this episode is a great presentation of what Trill society is like, and it's one of my all-time favorite Dax episodes. Just, that's it. That's all I can say about it. It's awesome. I love Terry Farrell in this episode.
Yeah, it's a see it for me, too. I mean, we get more about the Trill culture in this one episode than I think we got in entire seasons up to this point. It's a very interesting character dynamic, and like you said, Terry Farrell does great with the material she's given. And I'm a big Susanna Thompson fan, so I was in anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. She's fantastic on this. And great casting opposite Terry, too.
Yes. Yeah, they definitely have a chemistry.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because when I look at the results for this in Camp Kittimer, this is the lowest rated episode so far of the 6 that we've done, 74.2%. And still, that's a high response rate for Camp Kittimer, said that they would see this episode. So 3 out of 4.
Well, I think it's interesting to wonder, what it is that's driving some of that. I mean, it's not a very actiony episode at all. I mean, it's definitely a bottle show. And you're going to see more of those this year. But even when they do a bottle show, I mean, the writing staff for DS9 cannot be praised enough.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
They have such a rich selection, or a rich cast of characters to mess with, and not just the main characters, but the recurring ones as well. It's just they have so much to work with, and so many talented actors working for those characters. It's amazing that they had an embarrassment of riches here.
Oh, without a doubt.
So, all right, so we're 6 for 6 on seeing it all, huh? All right.
See it.
All right. So number 7, Starship Down. The USS Defiant becomes trapped in a planet's radiation-filled atmosphere after battling with the Jem'Hadar. Take it away, Dan.
Well, 7 for 7, I got to say, boys. This is a see it for me. I love this episode. We get to see 3 separate groups of people dealing with the current situation on the Defiant, and I'm going to break them down real quick. We have the Kira Sisko aspect, that Sisko can't die because he's the emissary, so we get to see how much Kira believes in her faith. I thought that was very interesting. Dax and Bashir trapped together in season 1. This would have been creepy stalking Bashir, trying to have an opportunity to get with Dax, but now it shows their deep friendship that's evolved over the past 3 seasons plus. And with Quark and Hannock, even after being caught cheating the Karama, and they're both close to death, Quark is still a master negotiator, and he ends up winning in the end. So it's a great character building episode for all of these people involved. Bill?
I agree, Dan. I'm 7 for 7 too, which is really kind of scary because we've never agreed this much on a season. But I have always loved this episode. I think it's a great story. And for me, the Kira Sisko interactions are some of my favorites in the series. Plus, when you consider that this episode is co-written by David Mack, enough said, you just have to love this episode. So for me, it's a see it, Dayton.
Yeah, I have to admit my bias up front because it's written by 2 friends of mine, David Mack and John, or they provide the story, David Mack and John Ordover. So I'm already predisposed to like this. But I'm also a fan of old-time submarine movies.
Yeah.
Which this is like. I mean, this is very reminiscent of something like, and in fact, Dave, I think, even suggested that, Das Boot and the Poseidon Adventure were inspirations for the story.
Nice.
I'd have to look that up though. No, it's an easy see it for me. This is just this is what you can do with a bottle show This is pushing the expectations of what you can get out of a bottle show.
Right.
And I was just going to say that too, because just a minute ago we were talking about how great the bottle shows on Deep Space Nine were, and here's one of the best of them right there. 87% of the respondents in Camp Kittimer also agree with us that they would see this because it's just a fantastic episode.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on to episode 8, and if people disagree with me on this one, then I can't help them. I don't know what to do with you. All right. Little Green Men. Quark, Rom, Nog, and Odo are accidentally thrust back in time to Roswell, New Mexico, Earth in 1947. See it. Done. Next question.
Well, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm really not sure what you're trying to say, Dayton. I wish you'd make your point a little more clearly. For me, this is the quintessential Ferengi episode. I mean, I've admitted before I'm not a fan of some of the other ones, but this one is impossible to not love. It's perfect on every level, and I think it fires on every cylinder. If I can create any more colorful metaphors and analogies, I will. But Dan, this is hands down, see it.
Oh, this is... And if this isn't 100%, I will on Camp Kittimer. I will be very surprised. This is a see it for me. It may be the best Ferengi episode ever. I would have to watch this one and then the Magnificent Ferengi back to back to decide because they're both so good. It looks like everybody had just a blast with this story. It's a great time travel story, and I love the continuity when they pull Easter eggs in episodes when Nog was studying Earth history and thought it was very strange that Gabriel Bell looked a lot like Captain Sisko. I just love stuff like that. The only thing that I would say about it that I would like to have seen is that there was maybe some connection with Nurse Garland to some descendant of a Trek character, because she had a lot in this episode, and it would have been neat to have some kind of end to that storyline somehow.
Well, I think you guys know where I'm going to land on this one.
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I feel like I'm in suspense here.
Just in case there's still a holdout, this is a see it for me. This is one of my all-time favorite DS9 episodes. I love 50s science fiction and monster movies. So this is right in that sweet spot. I remember the ad for this when it was, like when the next time on DS9, the coming attraction, it was played like an old 50s movie trailer, complete with the crazy fonts and the ridiculous, superlatives and hyperbole and all that stuff. It was great. And I've made use of this episode in a couple of my books. So yeah, I love it.
Nice.
And Camp Kittimer is along those same lines. 84% of respondents said they would see this episode. So not 100.
Wow. But
still, Dan, for Camp Kittimer, that's pretty damn high.
I don't know. It's not 100. I'm disappointed in them.
Not to put too fine a point on it. Thanks, Dan.
Man, this is a rough room.
Tough room.
Okay. Moving on to episode 9, The Sword of Kahless. Worf, Dax, and Kor search for the Sword of Kahless to unite the Klingon Empire. Go ahead, Dan.
All right. Well, I gave this one a see it, but I give it a see it mostly because of Kor and John Colicos. I love him. The idea of finding the sword that's been missing for so long and it's found so quickly by two different parties is a little tough to swallow. And then they just leave it floating in space. That's a little tough to swallow. I did like the callback to previous Star Trek episodes that we get to see Tyrrell all grown up and just as slimy as his father Duras. So I did like those aspects of it. So I did give it a see it. William.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, very welcome.
This is a see it for me too, but just barely so. I mean, largely it's because of John Colicos, because I love him. I love Kor. Kor is my favorite Klingon of all time. Just because he was first and all. The bickering between Worf and Kor is a little hard for me to take or believe, for that matter. But I really think it's still worth watching. So it's a definite see it for me.
Yeah, I'm like you guys. It was a see it, but it was I had to go back and forth on it a couple of times before I landed on it, and it's largely because of John Colicos. I don't know why he didn't just gut Quark.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a dull butter knife, but that's I mean, it's an interesting insight into some Klingon lore that we haven't seen yet. But I'm like you, like everybody's been looking for this thing, then everybody finds this thing, and then we leave it. Indiana Jones and the Sword of Kahless.
Yep. I was just gonna say it's like the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is of the 9 episodes we've so far talked about. This was the first one that I waffled on.
Yeah, I'm right in that same boat. And Camp Kinnemer comes in at about 81% of respondents would see this episode. So I'm not surprised by that, given that it was just barely a see it for me. And I suspect that you two are probably in the same boat.
I have to say that I'm a little surprised it's that high after only 86% gave a see it to Little Green Men.
I know.
I would have thought it would be a lot lower.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Fickle crowd, you guys.
I know, right?
Oh, what can we say? It's a direct reflection of the co-host of this show.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right, moving on to episode 10. Our man Bashir. Bashir plays a 1960s secret agent in a holosuite with Garak. In order to save several crew members from a transporter accident, their patterns are stored into the holodeck, causing Bashir and Garak problems. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, it's amazing. My family has that same reaction every time they talk to me. I love on this episode so hard. I mean, I'm a diehard James Bond fan. I love the Flint movies. I love all the spy genre things, Man from U.N.C.L.E., you name it. This is just a nice play on a holodeck gone wrong episode for me and that trope. So for me, this is a see it because it's just so much fun for me, Dan.
I love this episode so much for so many reasons. I love the holodeck episodes because every holodeck episode is a holodeck episode where something goes wrong. And the way that they use the holodeck to save their patterns is really quite brilliant writing, I think. I love the goofy aspects of the 60s Bond movies. Cisco as Hippocrates Noah is just unbelievably awesome. And I got to say, Terry Farrell in those glasses with her hair down is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen on television. So it is a definite see it for me.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Dan gets a cigarette.
Yeah, absolutely.
I finally went with see it. I'm not generally a huge holodeck episode guy, Captain Proton notwithstanding.
Yep.
But again, it was obvious that they had so much fun with this, and the writers were able to turn what had already become a Star Trek trope in its own right on its head a little bit and have some fun with it. I forgave it. Plus, I'm a huge James Bond fan, so that helped. And apparently, they were very much James Bond fans too, because they got a nasty gram from the people who own James Bond. As a result of this episode. So you'll notice that later when they revisit the holosuite program, they toned down a little bit of the references.
Interesting.
But it was a fun episode. When I first thought about this, I was thinking, wait a minute, the Dominion has come in, the war is here, everybody's getting crazy, and we're going to have a holodeck episode. And then I remembered where it was in the chronology. So I'm like, I forgave it for that.
I think that's one of the things that Deep Space Nine has always done brilliantly is they find a way to inject one-off episodes or stories that break up the whole Dominion arc simply just to keep things interesting.
Yeah, actually going back, I realized this is the perfect episode to have before the next episode when we turn things a little more serious.
Oh, yes.
So that brings us into episode 11, Homefront. Cisco and Odo are brought to Earth when it's suspected that changelings are infiltrating Starfleet. Dan.
Well, this part one of the two-parter is just amazing. We get to finally see. I gave it a see it, by the way. I'm 11 for 11. We finally get to see the paranoia that the Dominion has started to spread throughout the Federation when we really haven't seen the Dominion that much. That shows how much of a threat they really are going to be and are. So I definitely gave this one a see it, Bill.
I agree with you. We're 11 for 11, Dan. This is unprecedented on a variety of levels. This is one of my favorite two-parters in Star Trek because we get a really good look here at how the Federation is treating the Dominion threat and the lengths at which they're willing to go. Plus, I love Robert Foxworth anytime he shows up in anything. And whenever he shows up in Star Trek, he's usually pissed off. And so that makes me happy. So definite see it for me.
Yeah, I came down on see it pretty easily. It's interesting that this episode serves as a wake-up call to Starfleet about just how deadly or just how dangerous the threat is. And it's interesting that it comes as it does in the season after we've had 2 or 3 lighthearted romps and some other character studies where we really haven't had a lot of action going on. And then all of a sudden it's like a reminder, hey, there's bad guys out there. And not only that, but they're here in our backyard. So to me, it was just a gear shift change for the season at this point right here.
Nice.
And then, like you said, I'm a huge Robert Foxworth fan. So anytime he shows up, you're in for some fun.
Well, and Camp Kittimer agrees with us, 100%. And I mean that literally. 100% of respondents said they would watch Homefront.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Hands down. It's a fantastic episode.
Well, then hopefully the next one will be pretty easy. So we can go to episode 12, Paradise Lost. As Cisco and Odo prepare for a Dominion invasion, they discover a plot to place the Federation under military control. Bill.
I love how the title of this episode is so profound, because that's really what's going on here. You get the reveal that this whole thing has been the Dominion plan all along, this reaction, and you realize how deep their reach truly is and what the stakes really are. So hands down for me, this is a see it if it wasn't obvious from the previous pick. I love the hell out of this episode, Dan.
Yeah, this is a see it for me too. And the thing that's amazing about this is, as O'Brien changeling tells Cisco, there's only 4 changelings in the Alpha Quadrant at this point, and look at the havoc they've wrought. I mean, it's amazing that there's martial law on Earth, and it's just inconceivable, yet there we are. The Dominion's plan is working perfectly up until Captain Cisco really gets involved. It's just a great episode all around, a great conclusion, even though we see that Leah Brahms has somehow become a Starfleet officer and is in command of a starship.
Damn you, central casting. No, I mean, yeah, this is an easy see it for me. This is one of those rare 2-parters that lives up to the cliffhanger, that it's dealt. It's so many layers to this episode, not just for what's going on in the story arc, but for the show as a whole. I mean, it's like Paradise Lost. DS9 as a series spent a lot of time deconstructing, if not outright subverting, what we thought of as a traditional Star Trek story.
Absolutely. Yep.
And right here is where it really kicks into gear. And this sets the tone in large part for the remainder of the series right here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically telling, they're coming for us and you guys aren't ready. You've been screwing around and now we're here, which you could argue they were doing that earlier in the season. So yeah, to me, it's an easy, this is the big shift for DS9 that will carry it all the way to the end.
Well, you may recall last time in our Camp Kittimer results, 100% of the respondents said they would watch Homefront. 96.8% said they would watch Paradise Lost.
One person.
2, actually.
2 people.
2 people said they would not watch the second half of this 2-parter.
They are being sent to the principal's office.
Dean Warmer.
I think that's fascinating, because I wouldn't skip the second half of the story, because I want to know how it turns out.
Right.
But 2 people said that it's not for them, and so it is.
Okay, well, to each their own.
True.
Right?
True.
We got room for all sorts of opinions here, even the wrong ones. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Even Dan's.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, moving on. Episode 13, Crossfire. Odo's hidden feelings for Kira surface when the visiting Bajoran First Minister, Shakar, begins to court her. Dan, it's your turn.
All right. Well, this one was the one that I really had a hard time deciding on, but I decided to keep the streak going, and I'm going to give it a see it. And the reason why I was really waffling on this is because I just do not like Shakar. I don't like the stories with him. I don't like the actor who portrays him. I don't think it's a very, very interesting character at all. But I gave this episode a see it because of Odo and his reaction, how crushed he is by what he sees happening with the relationship between Shakar and Kira. And Quark is masterful in this episode, because he goes to Odo's quarters and openly they discuss what's happening to him after he has this little rampage and breaks everything in his quarters. So it shows that very special yet odd relationship that these two have, which we discussed a few episodes back during the talk about the Ascent, Bill.
Well, Dan, we were 12 for 12. This was lucky 13, and I'm going to break with you on this one.
I knew it.
This one for me is a skip it. And here's my first one of the season, Dan. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here's my review. Meh. This episode is The Bodyguard in Space. The only saving grace to this episode is Renee's performance, and that's because he's 100 times the actor that Kevin Costner is. But ultimately, I can't stand Shakar. I never, like you said, Dan, I'm not a big fan of the character. I think he's a little too milquetoast for Kira. I still think when I see Duncan Rager as Shakar, all I can think of is, didn't light the candle. A little Sub Rosa, PTSD
sex
there.
ghost. Yeah,
totally. So for me, this one's got to be a skip it. I'm sorry.
First one, that's 20.
Wow.
12 times 3
All right.
30.
Well, we had to happen. It had to happen.
It had to.
I was almost to skip it. I had plugged it in the other day, and then I was looking over my choices, and I finally waffled, and I flipped the bit and went back to see it. And I do it for 2 reasons only, and that is Renee Auberjonois and Armin Shimmerman.
There you go.
Their scenes together are the high points of this episode by far.
Yep.
You get a lot about Odo in this episode and how he feels for Kira, but that little bit of Quark that you see that kind of breaks the facade, where you can tell there's more to him than the front he puts on as the businessman, and all of that is on Armin Shimmerman. It goes back to the strength these actors have and the talent they bring to their roles. So for that reason alone, I say see it, but just skip to that scene with Quark and Odo, and then go to the next episode.
It's interesting because so far this is the lowest rated episode of the season for Camp Kittimer. It's 71%. Yeah, well, I think we will at some point. I think we're gonna
top it.
But 71% still very respectable though.
That is, yeah. And you're not part of that respect.
Okay.
No, I disrespect this episode.
All right. Well, speaking of interesting character moments, episode 14, Return to Grace. Dukat seeks Kira's help in regaining his rank in the Cardassian Empire. This is your turn, Bill.
Oh, thanks, Dayton. This is a see it for me. I love this episode because it continues that great Kira Dukat dynamic, and plus it sets Dukat up for the next phase in his character's development. The sort of vigilante, off on his own, one man war machine. Or one warbird war machine, if you will. A bird of prey, whatever the hell the ship is.
Oh, Lord.
I know. I'm a mess. But yeah, Dan, this one for me is a see it. Give me more of this.
Oh, yeah, definitely a see it for me. So I'll give you some more. A lot of the things that you said, I'm going to echo, Bill. We get to see here what Dukat actually sacrificed by saving Zial's life. He lost everything. He became a lowly freighter captain. But then we get to see him take over that bird of prey and vow to become Cardassia's vigilante against the Empire. And as always, in every single episode that Dukat is in, Mark Alimo is just brilliant. I wish I could just give him an Oscar, Emmy, Tony, Grammy, whatever kind of award you can give him for every time he shows up on the screen on DS9, because he's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm a huge Mark Alimo fan. So anytime he's on the screen in Dukat, I have a funny Dukat convention story that I can tell when we're done here. But one of the other things that I like about this episode, because it's a key moment, we are introduced to Goldemar.
Yes.
And he will factor heavily as the series progresses.
Kinda,
sorta. You might want to pay attention. No, but this isn't a continuation of what we started with Indiscretion. I mean, it's the next chapter in this little character arc between Kira and Dukat. So for me, on the strength of that alone, it's a see it.
Absolutely. Camp Kittimer is right there with us. 85.5% of respondents said this episode was a see it for them. 14.5% saying, nah, not so much.
Wow.
So yeah, this is still season 4, very strong past the midway point here.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we're still hanging pretty strong.
Oh, absolutely.
Episode 15.
Solid season yet.
Yeah, episode 15. Sons of Moog. Worf's brother Kern asks Worf to kill him as he has been cast out of Klingon society due to Worf's discommodation. Took him long enough. All right, so Dan, take it away.
2 words, baby. Tony Todd. This is a see it for me. Tony Todd again shines. This ending is one of the most heartbreaking endings in Deep Space Nine, when Kern's memory gets wiped out so he won't be part of Worf's disgrace. That look of pain and defeat on Worf's face as Kern leaves, or should I say, as Rodek leaves, is so powerful. Michael Dorn, sometimes we complain that sometimes Michael Dorn as Worf was a little bit too stiff and didn't really show emotion other than him being pissed off very well. He shows great emotion here without even saying anything. You see his shoulders droop, and it's just a great, great scene. This is a definite see it for me, Bill.
Yeah, this one's a see it for me, but it really, believe it or not, Dan, this is one of the ones that was just barely a see it for me. For me, I think this conclusion is weak. It just seems a little too far-fetched to me, especially in the scope of the whole Klingon honor thing. Getting his memory wiped and getting rebooted as Rodek just doesn't seem to be the thing that a Klingon would want to do. But that's just me. It's one I've wrestled with over time. There have been times when I've loved this episode and times where I've just been like, So I'm going to give it a see it somewhat provisionally.
Okay.
It's fair. I gave it a see it. Some of the best moments that Michael Dorn has as Worf is when Worf has to make a decision and it's at odds with human morality or human ethics. You know what I mean? Like he did in The Enemy and Next Gen, where he refused the transfusion or to help with the transfusion, and Crusher was horrified, but Picard, at the ultimate moment when he could order him to do it, backed off and respected, his cultural beliefs. And there's a little bit of that going on right now. I mean, it's like everybody can't really understand why he's doing what he's doing or why he made this decision for his brother, but they're not prepared to go to the mat against him about it, It's an interesting turn, and Michael Dorn does pretty well with what he's given. I left it. Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily a necessary episode for DS9, but it's a good one. I gave it a see it.
I think that's actually a good point, if I can jump in, Bill, that it's not a necessity episode. You're right. There's nothing going on in this episode that has any consequences down the line. I think it's good that we get to see that conflict. Bill, you mentioned that no Klingon would want that to happen to them, but does he really get that choice? I can't recall, or is it that
Worf made it for him?
Yeah, exactly.
But I would think that Worf would know that his brother wouldn't want that, and Worf wouldn't want that himself, which is why I struggled with it.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's fair. Yeah, I mean, what's really the downer part of the whole thing is that we never get to see Tony Todd in this role again.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of a downer way to end his character arc.
True. So, what did the Kittimerites have to say?
The Kittimerites in Camp Kittimer, the official Facebook group of the Trek Geeks podcast, 80.6% of them said they would see this episode. So that's a healthy number.
Yeah.
I think that falls in line with kind of how I feel about it. There are days where I'd watch it and there are days where I'd be like, eh. So, yeah, that's cool.
Okay. Well, let's see what the next one does, because it'll be interesting to see what the opinions are on this one. Bar Association, episode 16. Rom creates a union for Quark's employees and goes on strike. Bill, you're up.
Well, here we are, gents. Here we are. It's my second one of the episode, and by second one, I mean it's my second skip it, and it's also my second meh. This episode does nothing for me. Apparently the Alpha Quadrant's not a right to work quadrant. Sorry, boom, sorry. But this episode just doesn't engage me at all. The Worf story annoys me. The whole union thing annoys me, not because it's a union thing, just because the episode doesn't work for me. So for me, Dan, it's a skip it.
Okay, brother. Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we went 15 strong, but I gave this one my first skip it of the season, and I went back and forth on it. I won't lie. It's essential to see how Ferengi culture works, and it's crucial to see the back and forth with Brunt and Quark, but it's just a weak episode. Bill's right. The whole union thing and going on strike, it just really didn't work for me. And to echo Bill, the B story with Worf being a big baby because things are different than they were on the Enterprise, it's really annoying. We're 16 episodes in. You've been on Deep Space Nine for a long time. Grow a set, pal, and just deal with it. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, this was one of my skip-its. I just, other than Quark and Ram and Nog, I really don't care about the Ferengi. I never really have.
Yeah.
And so to have an entire episode devoted to their workplace problems, don't get me wrong, I love Armin Shimmerman, and I will watch him do anything. But it just, I don't know, it was just one of those stories that I felt was misplaced.
Mm-hmm.
And strong stories with continuing character arcs, and we're building the tension, we're ratcheting things up with the face off against the Dominion, and then I don't even know where this one came from.
Just out of nowhere, Well, gentlemen, I congratulate you both on your first skip it.
Thank you.
First one's the hardest one. Yeah, I know.
It really is. It's you're getting off that saddle. 15 in a row. Good for you boys. Camp Kittimer though, 69.4 say that they would see this episode. So a little higher than us, but still very interesting. Not the lowest rated one of the season. I'm going to tell you right now.
I don't fault the performances. I thought all the actors. We're fine. There was nothing wrong with their performances. I just didn't care about this particular storyline. I really. I mean, in a time period where you can walk up to the wall and order your dinner by pressing a button, do we really need to have restaurant worker union strike?
There you go.
I don't know.
It just doesn't fit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's see what we can do again. Let's see here. All right. So, okay, here's another one it'll be interesting. A Session, episode 17. A famous Bajoran poet, please don't ask me to pronounce his name, disappeared over 200 years ago, appears from the wormhole and claims that he is the true emissary. Dan.
That would be Akoram Lan, just to let you know.
Gesundheit.
Baboom. Okay, yes. I actually gave this one a see it. And I will say that it was never one that I paid a lot of attention to at first. But as I've watched the series over and over again, this has become one that I have really grown to love. And the reason is that this episode, Ben finally sees how important it is to be the emissary of the prophets. And it really defines him for the rest of the series. And one of the things that I like most in this episode, at the end of the episode, Akoram's unfinished poem was now complete. So that was a nice way to wrap up his story in a positive way, that he was sent back to his time and he was able to finish his work. And I will just always see the guy who played Akoram as the lead editor in the movie Fletch. So that's always a plus also.
Nice pull. I like that. This one's a see it for me too. I like this episode because it throws characters into some uncomfortable situations. Dan, like you mentioned, this is where Sisko, kind of gets that realization that, there's a reason why he's the emissary, and he starts to become slightly more comfortable in that role. Plus, Kira realizing she's not an artist is not news to any of us. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's an episode I've always enjoyed, and for me, it's an absolute see it.
Yeah, I'm going to echo you guys, both of you. This is a turning point for Sisko, and it will inform him throughout the run of the show from here, including right up until the finale. So yeah, it's an important Sisko episode, and it's important it's an important look inside some inner workings of Bajoran religion and faith. So yeah, it's a strong character piece. And this is the episode that they should have had instead of Bar Association.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, it's a see it for me.
Camp Kittimer agrees with us for the most part. 77.4% say that they would see this episode. And I still highlighting the very strong quality of season 4.
Okay.
I like it.
We're back on a roll. We're one in a row, streaking.
Woohoo!
All right. So
not going to last.
Episode 18, Rules of Engagement. Worf accidentally destroys a civilian ship during battle and faces a hearing to determine whether he should be extradited to the Klingon Empire. Go, Bill.
See, I knew it was going to be me, and then my spreadsheet froze. So now I can't even see what I was doing.
We're having some technical difficulties with Dan. We'll switch it over.
But I actually know. I know my rating for this one. I'm going to say it's an absolute see it. This is an episode that I really love. Sort of Law and Order in space. Plus, I mean, you get J.G. Hertzler's former roommate as a Klingon in Ron Canada. So I'm very excited by this episode. Absolute see it for me.
Yeah, I agree. This is a see it. This is one of those Klingon ones that I always remember because I find it very interesting that Klingons who value honor over everything and anything else stoop to such deception to achieve their goals to try to get Worf out of the Federation. Cisco shines as Worf's counsel in this episode. And as Bill said, Advocate Chapok is brilliantly played by Ron Canada. And you just got to wonder if it's possible to have a better Klingon trial. Isn't it possible?
Yeah, you hit on something I was going to bring up. Yeah, the Klingon Empire spends a lot of time doing dishonorable things to Worf. Worf has been screwed by the Empire, dating all the way back to Next Gen, Sins of the Father.
Right.
And so this is just another bit of that. And will he ever shake this off? Tune in next week. No, but I mean, it's like you said, it's a little bit of Law and Order, and there's also a little bit of an echo to the original series episode Court Martial. Where Kirk is on trial for doing a bad thing that we discovered later was not necessarily so. So yeah, for me, it's to see it.
I like how they had you call back to Court Martial, like you just said, Dayton. They even have the little bell that they tap during the proceedings, which I thought was a great reference.
I can't get to the Camp Kittimer results right now because my other browser window is frozen, and I can't really end task on it because it's going to crash all my sessions.
Well, I'm just going to assume that they're 100% in agreement with us. No.
I like that because it's a great episode. So let's go with that.
It has a ring of truth. All right. So you're frozen up on that website?
Yeah, I'm going to see if
I can find it. I actually have the results right here, actually. Oh, no, I don't. That's an old episode of TNG.
I'm getting it straight off of the Google Forms. If I can bring up my task manager, I might be able to go places.
This ought to be interesting. So, Dayton,
tough when your mouse is dead.
Over the weekend.
What's that?
What'd you do over the weekend?
I worked on the new book. So,
I've got it now.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for vamping until I was ready. 82.3% of respondents would see this episode. So very, very respectable.
Okay. We're rolling. Okay. All right. So episode 19, Hard Time. O'Brien's mind has been altered to create memories of being incarcerated for 20 years on an alien world on charges of espionage. Dan, take it away.
Anybody who knows me and knows my love for Cole Meany knows what I'm going to do with this episode. This is a see it times 10 for me. After Captive Pursuit, this is my favorite O'Brien episode, hands down. Colm Meany does an amazing job in this episode as a completely defeated and broken man. And I talked about it before with how one episode of TNG, I think, when you're a certain age, you have to go and die, and the laws are just crazy on some of these planets, but they're psycho crazy, and this is no different. The Agrathi, you're going to do a punishment. We're going to not punish you for real. We're just going to throw things in your brain, so you're going to think you're being punished for so long. I think that's just ingenious storytelling. And I love that we got to see Margaret Rose, who, of course, played Kamen's wife, Aline, in The Inner Light. It was good to see her return to Star Trek as the Agrathi Corrections official. So every which way you can possibly think, I give this one a see it. Bill?
I wish you could really be plain about how you feel about this episode and not admire your thoughts in clever subtext.
I try.
Yeah, this for me is the ultimate O'Brien must suffer story. It's the one that spawned 1,000 O'Brien must suffer memes. It's essential, and I think that everything that Cole Meany does in this episode is just outstanding. It's a great script from start to finish, and they just really executed this one well. Definite see it for me.
Yeah, I love these episodes. I love episodes like this one and The Inner Light, and even Memorial on Voyager, where something like this happens to the crew. And it's a definite showcase for Cole Meany. It's a perfect example of how a one-off character that was going to be in the background on Next Gen, gets spun off to the other show and flourishes.
Right.
This is a great, and I love Captive Pursuit too. That's one of my other favorite episodes. But anything Meany does with this character, when they let him off the chain a little bit, it's always fun to watch. This is a definite see it for me.
Well, a mere 9.7% of respondents in Camp Kittimer said they would skip this episode. So lots of love for Hard
Nice.
Time, as you might imagine.
That's great.
Plus,
Be
you gotta
well
admit, it's got to be cost effective from an incarceration perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's so cool about it. I think that's fantastic. We should start doing that here.
So, all right. So, episode 20, Shattered Mirror. Cisco attempts to rescue Jake after he is lured into the war-torn mirror universe by his mother's living counterpart. This is Bill's turn.
Well, I know I shall draw the ire of my co-host with this particular selection, but here is my third skip it of the season. And also, Dan, my third meh. This is where, for me, I feel like Deep Space Nine started to go back to the mirror universe well just a few too many times. I thought it was great the first couple of times, but now we're getting to a point where I think they're coming up with reasons to go there. And at this point, the mirror universe was losing its sort of, oh, cool factor for me. So although I'm positive you are going to disagree because you're a mirror universe fanboy, and I respect that, it's a skip it for me, sir.
I don't even know who you are anymore. Yeah, I gave this one a see it, as you might imagine, because I am a little biased, and I don't disagree with everything you're saying, Bill, but I actually think that this one was the pinnacle of the Mirror Universe episodes, and after this is where it really started to drop off in Deep Space Nine. But I like this one because we got to see Worf as the Regent and Garrick literally on a leash, and we got to see the Defiant in some great space special effect battle scenes. If there's one thing I didn't like about this episode, is that too many of the characters that we know get killed for absolutely no reason at all. And that may be because it's the mirror universe, but Nog gets killed for no reason, and Jennifer, of course, gets killed, and others do along the way. But I still love it. It's mirror universe. We get to see the people out of their norm, and it's just something I always enjoy. So yeah, I gave it a see it. So to you, Bill.
I gave it a see it, but it was an almost skip it. For the same reasons. At this point, I'm already tired of the mirror universe. They didn't do as bad by the mirror universe as Voyager did to the Borg.
Yep. No, definitely.
And
Absolutely.
I also think that this is perhaps the strongest of the mirror universe episodes that DS9 did. But at this point, it's starting to already feel repetitive, and I'm like, why? I mean, like you said, when they start killing off people, it's like, why do we keep going back there?
Yeah.
And how are we going to do another one? So, because we know we're not done yet. Yeah, this was a skip it, or I'm sorry, see it, but just barely.
And Camp Kittimer, to the tune of 80.6%, said that they would see this episode. So that seems to be an average for a lot of these episodes, is right around the 80% mark. So I think that's pretty fair.
Go MU. Woo!
Go
Right, well.
you. Go F you, Dan.
We should probably end up getting on the same page here again with this next one.
Yeah.
Episode 21, The Muse. While Odo assists a pregnant Loxana Troy, Jake falls under the spell of a mysterious woman, Onaya. Take it away, Dan.
This is the best episode in Star Trek history. No, I did unfortunately have to give my second skip it of the season to this one. As Bill has talked about, and I'm sure we will hear momentarily from him, I don't hate it as much as Bill does, but it just doesn't work for me. The saving grace in this episode for me, and see, I'm not even talking about the A plot because it's just so bad, but the saving grace is in the B story, where we get to see our good friend Michael Forrest show up. Wait, I'm sorry. No, that's Michael Ansara show up as Loxana's Tavnian husband, Jayal. I thought that was a great, nice bringing back someone into the Star Trek family again as a different character. I think it's his third or maybe even his fourth at this point. But yeah, skip it. It's just terrible.
So sidebar, Dayton, we're at STLV this past year, and Dan and I are talking to Michael Forrest, who our friend Casey Shafke introduced us to. And Dan called him Michael Ansara.
No!
Which is why that's there. Like, while he was talking to him.
Yeah, it just not even any reason. I've even said Michael Ansara in like 20 years, but yet there I am making a fool of myself.
Yeah.
So,
It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah.
Why is that much?
Oh.
So,
But I gotta add to that. He took it in stride. He's like, "Oh, Michael Ansara. Oh, I remember him. I always wondered if he was Jewish. It was just the funniest thing. He just kept it right in line. I loved it.
yeah. So anyway, the Muse. Dan, can you see my notes in the spreadsheet?
I can.
Would you read them, please?
Bill has skip it with a poop emoticon, and that's it.
That's my notes for this episode.
Wow.
Poop emoji.
All right. Well, I don't hate this episode. Hate is a strong word, and I reserve that for episodes like "And the Children Shall Lead," Code of Honor.
Yeah.
Or Move Along Home.
I love Move Along Home.
Well, it's okay to be wrong. But anyway, no, my one regret about this episode is that it's the last time we see Majel Barrett as Loxana Troy.
Yeah.
And I love Majel Barrett to death.
Yep.
I have always loved her, and I loved her in this role. I mean, this was a role that she had enormous fun with, and you could tell, and especially in the Next Gen episodes. So it's a shame that this is the last time we'll see her character. But I just again, it's one of those ones where it probably sounded good on paper, and look at what we'll do here, and then it just sort of went off the rails. So, and as far as I can tell, nobody involved with the making of this episode likes it. So,
yeah.
None of us have talked about the A story. That's hysterical.
I know. It's like we don't want to because we don't want to get sucked into that trap. But it's like I think even the people who catered this episode production don't. So.
Well, I can see the discussion when they were breaking this story. It's like, all right, we need a Jake story,
right?
And this is what they come up with. Why do they hate Sirach Lofton? That's what I want to know. So as you might guess, gentlemen, this was the highest percentage of skip in this season's See It or Skip It. Would you care to guess the percentage of skip it for the Muse?
It was
Dan.
I'm going to say 75% skip it.
Dayton?
I'll say at least 80%.
Wow. You guys hate this episode a lot more than they do. 62.9%.
Well, wow.
It's better to say that they're more forgiving than we are.
Yeah, that's the spin that we're going to put on it. They're far more forgiving. We're just jerks.
Maybe they're more open-minded than we are. Maybe that's the way to spin that.
I'm going to go back to poop emoji.
Okay. All right. That's your call sign from now on.
Oh, I like that.
All right. So, episode 22, For the Cause. Cisco learns that his girlfriend Cassidy might be a Maquis smuggler. Take it away, Bill.
Yeah, and that's not all that happens in this one. I mean, this we devoted an entire podcast episode to this, and in fact, we did the whole Eddington arc, and just the twist on this in the fourth act is worth the price of admission alone. Cisco, kind of gets a double betrayal of sorts in this, and this is an absolute see it. This is one of the best episodes of season 4, and it sets up stuff for the future that I just love. Dan?
Everything has been building to this, guys. It's just a definite see it for me. That twist, like you talked about, that happened, and we were like, oh, no, he didn't. I mean, it was just crazy. We did not expect that at all. But then again, we also didn't expect her to be a smuggler and this, that, and the other thing. It's a brilliant episode. Like Bill said, we had a great time talking about this for a full episode of our podcast. And it's an amazing part 1 to an arc that takes a long time to finish. It's only 3 episodes, but it's stretched out over a long time to keep you interested in it. And I thought that was another brilliant piece of writing.
Did you just, oh, no, he didn't?
Oh, no, he didn't.
Just don't do that again. Oh, my God.
Oh, no, he didn't.
No, stop. Stop.
Dayton?
I'm still trying to get over that one. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
It's like I didn't know Dan was so street.
Yeah, look at him.
No, this just for Eddington and Cisco alone, this is a winner. I mean, the fact that Cassidy turns out to be working for the Maquis, it's kind of a surprise, but at the same time, you kind of saw it coming. But I love the dynamic and this position it puts Cisco in. And then just for Eddington to do what he does in this episode, and you just know it pisses Cisco off something fierce, and we'll see that payoff. That's the best part about this episode, is that this is one of those things that you can't wait for the payoff, and the payoff lives up to the expectation. No spoilers. But,
no spoilers.
No, this is a definite see it for me.
Camp Kittimer agrees unanimously. 100% of respondents
Oh my
said
God.
this was a see it, and they are not wrong by any means.
That's 100% so far this season, right?
Yeah, that's never happened before.
That's unbelievable. That's great.
Well, I mean, it's
Nice.
a good story. So, I mean, this is what DS9 does so well, flipping the script, you know. Okay, so episode 23. We're getting to the nitty gritty now. Episode 23, To the Death. Cisco and the Defiant crew joined forces with the Jem'Hadar to stop a group of Jem'Hadar renegades from taking control of an Iconian gateway. This just has everything in it. Take it, Dan.
Yeah, this is, oh my God, I love this episode so much. If not for anything else, we get to welcome Weyoun to the Deep Space Nine family. Jeffrey Combs, finally we get to see him for the first time. And then we get to say goodbye to him for the first time also, which is kind of cool. It's just an amazing story showing the chain of command, so to speak, with the Dominion, with the Jem'Hadar and the Vorta and who's first and second. It's really great to see. And I love the callback to TNG with the Iconians and the gateways. Great story. It sets up so much more down the line. And I love it. Love it. Bill?
I agree entirely. Everything you said, Dan, is everything that I'm going to say. Start of Weyoun, we get the TNG callback to early TNG, which is even better.
Yeah.
That really makes me happy. Jem'Hadar and Starfleet working together. You know, we get to say hello, goodbye to Weyoun. I don't know why he says goodbye when I say hello. I don't get that. But the absolute see it for me.
Oh my God, they killed Weyoun. Those bastards. There's just so much cool in this episode, and from my understanding is when they actually had to edit this one down to remove some of the violence.
Yeah, I believe it.
Apparently they went really off the rails with it. I love Jeffrey Combs, so he's always a gas, and I'm a huge fan of Clarence Williams III. Who plays the Jem'Hadar.
Yes.
And he does more for the Jem'Hadar in one episode than I think they get for the remainder of the show. He just brings such a depth to his character, and that's all on him. I mean, that's all on his talent as an actor. And I just love this little, it's almost like have you ever seen a movie called Hell in the Pacific? With Lee Marvin and I forget the actor's name, but it's an American soldier and a Japanese soldier. They both are on an island stranded together during World War II, and they have to work together. There's an element of this in here where these two forces have to kind of put aside their differences long enough to do something. And at the end of it, it's like, it doesn't make us buddies. When I see you again, I'm going to gut you. So it's just a great episode, and it's definitely setting the stage for what's coming later. So I give it a C.
Nice. It was the guy from the Godzilla movies, Toshiro Mifune.
That's the name. I was afraid of garbling it, so I wasn't going to say it.
And I may be mispronouncing his last name.
No, you're right. You got it.
That guy's amazing. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's amazing in everything.
It's interesting to point out that 95.2% of respondents in Camp Kittimer would see this episode. So there were alone 3 people who would skip to the death.
That's a shame.
Yeah, but fantastic episode. One of my favorites by far.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, well, we're hooking right along here then. All right, episode 24, The Quickening. Bashir tries to free the population of a Gamma Quadrant world in the Teplan system of an engineered disease left by the Dominion. Bill, you're up.
You know, this is an episode I think is key in understanding the Dominion. I mean, we all know that they'll go to great lengths to achieve their goals, but this episode actually puts a face on that and what it looks like. And that's why I think it's so important. Plus, in this episode, Bashir really gets kind of humbled. And I think that the way that comes about is written really well. And, how could I forget? Come to Quarks. Quarks is fun. Come right now. Don't walk. Run. That's a see it for me, Dan.
Wow, you could have sang it at least.
Nobody wants that.
No, nobody. I don't want that. No, this is a see it for me as well. It's one of the best Bashir stories in DS9 as a standalone Bashir, not O'Brien and Bashir. And I really like that aspect. And like you said, it's essential for understanding how ruthless the Dominion can be with the release of the Blight, just because these people tried to resist the Dominion. I think it's masterful storytelling. And I also like how in a future episode of Deep Space Nine, this comes back and we have a little bit of additional information about the quickening. So a little tease there for later seasons.
This is a great Bashir episode on a number of levels. I mean, it's kind of a hark back to the one in the early episode where he is having to face a harsh reality, but in this one he loses. I mean, he fails. Yeah. And it's a moment for Bashir to kind of reground himself a little bit. And I just love Alexander Siddig's portrayal of Bashir in this episode. It's a very strong performance. And like you said, it definitely sets the stage for later on, because this will come back. And it's a good see it for me.
Camp Kittimer, 22.6% of those responding said they would skip this episode, so almost 3 out of 4.
Wow.
I think that this episode is key on a variety of levels, especially in the development of Bashir. He thinks he's going to come in and solve this thing, and it totally knocks him on his ass. And I love that about this episode.
I also think it's great for pacing for the series or for the season, because we just came off 2 very strong episodes, To the Death and For the Cause, and this is just sort of like that dip that the roller coaster, or the climb the roller coaster makes before we start again.
Yep.
And because we're going to see a lot of that coming up here, not necessarily with the next episode, but I mean next season obviously we're going to kick it into gear. So this is a good put the brakes on for just a little bit and kind of catch your breath. So okay, so episode 25, the penultimate episode of the season, Body Parts. Quark is diagnosed with a terminal disease, Dirac syndrome, and given a week to live. Dan, this is yours to start with.
What I want is 52 discs of vacuum desiccated Quark. No more, no less.
This is a definite see it for me, because we get to see Jeffrey Combs shine as Brunt. I love the scene where he throws that magnetic Ferengi symbol up on the bar at the end of the episode. It's another essential Ferengi episode to see how their culture works. And at the same time, I really like the B story and how they were able to work Nana Visitor's pregnancy in real life into the show. So it works on every level in both stories, and I love it. And it's a see it for me, Bill, and I hope it is for you too.
Well, I don't want to disappoint you, buddy. It absolutely is a see it for me. Truth be told, I wasn't a big fan of this episode when it first aired, but I've come to really enjoy it over the years. I really like the Quark storyline, and the plot device for explaining Nana's pregnancy, I think, is pretty great. They didn't shoot around it like they did for Gates, or later like they did for Roxanne. They found a way to introduce it that I thought was pretty fantastic. So for me, this is a definite see it.
I got to give this episode props for finding a unique way to deal with an actor's pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And rather than sitting her behind a desk, where we can only see her from the waist up or whatever, I got to give the writers credit for taking that trope and standing it on its head. But I'm really, as I hinted at earlier, earlier in the season, we got a little bit of an insight into Quark's character and how he's not your typical Ferengi, or the way they've been portrayed to this point, and how they almost fall into a stereotype, and you get a sense of Quark's character again this time. There are lines he won't cross. There are things he will not do. There are limits that he will, that he has in terms of what he will do. So, and again, Armin Shimmerman, making it work. So yeah, for me, it's a definite change of pace from what we've had so far, but I'll give it a see it.
Well, and Camp Kittimer kind of agrees with us. 29% of people responding at Camp Kittimer said they would skip Body Parts. So 71% are in on this episode. So still way better than average. Season 4 still very, very strong. But yeah, I would watch this one many times.
Okay. All right, we're at it. We're finally here. The season finale, Broken Link. Odo collapses and is taken to the infirmary. Bashir discovers Odo is losing his ability to maintain solid form. And that description is the very definition of burying the lead for this episode. Go ahead, Bill.
I think this episode is amazingly strong as a finisher for the season, and just overall. The punishment for Odo is just one I didn't see coming at the time. And the idea that the founders could just, make him a solid really kind of blows my mind. And it kind of still does, because what can't they do?
Yeah.
Dan?
See it? Maybe? No, this episode is just so great. If there's one thing that really stands out in this episode above other things, we talked about it a little bit earlier in one of the Odo episodes, is that we get to see Quark confront Gooey Odo when he's about to leave the station. And that level of respect that they show each other is really a defining moment in their relationship. And I just think it's fantastic. The story is great. The cliffhanger is probably one of the best ones that we see, in that he becomes a solid. And was he really naked on that island? I'm really not sure. But
I don't want to consider that.
No, all joking aside, it's a fantastic episode. Renee shines, everybody shines, and it really just sets the tone for what we're going to see starting next season in 5.
Yeah, I was going to say, on top of all of that, the very end, when Odo tells everybody Gowron is a changeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they fade out, and you have to wait 3 months.
It's like best of both worlds all over again.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I have to admit, I never suspected that was coming. I totally it's kind of like when they introduced, never mind. It's just, I was blown away by that, and then fade out, and I got to wait. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
It didn't end on a huge bang, but it was a great way to end that season. This was a strong season. And that was a perfect way to cap it.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Attention.
Camp Kittimer mostly agrees. 98.4% of respondents said they would see this episode. There was one lone holdout that said they would skip it.
It's probably DeFord.
Barry DeFord. No, not Sweet Barry. So there we have it, gents. That is all 26 episodes of the 4th season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Are you interested in percentages, gents?
Absolutely.
Well, Dan, you had 24 out of 26 for 92.31%. Congratulations. That's your highest ranking ever.
And it is deserved. Season 4 is awesome.
Dayton, you matched Dan with 24 out of 26 for 92.31.
Yeah, it was a tough. It would have been easy to just say watch the whole year and don't complain about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I need something to complain about because that's just kind of the jerk I am. I hit 22 for 26 for a percentage of 84.62%. I got my requisite number of meh in and one poop emoji, so I think that I've hit a new low there.
You're a poop emoji just for having such a low number, jerk.
Your face is a poop emoji.
Your mom's a poop emoji.
That's yeah. Well, and this is why people listen to Trek Geeks. It's for the insightful commentary. Yeah.
Glad I could help raise the bar there.
Dayton, you do nothing but, sir. We are a big fan of your work, and we are so glad that you joined us. Thank you for refereeing the See It or Skip It. So what are you working on these days?
I am presently working on a brand spanking new Star Trek The Next Generation novel. That'll be out next spring. I think it's set for, I want to say April 2019 is when it's supposed to be out. So I should probably finish it. That's what I'm working on right now. That's the one that's taking up the bulk of my time. In and around all that, I'm doing editing on some stuff that I wrote earlier in the year, and I'm now starting to get back pages and copy edits and notes and whatnot. You may have, I think since the last time we talked, I was able to announce that I'm working on a book for Inside Editions called Kirk Fu.
Yes.
And it is, it's promising to be a total blast. I had such a lot of fun with it, and I think they're getting set to be able to display some artwork from the book.
Awesome.
It's basically a parody of self-defense manuals, but you get to learn all of James Kirk's unique fighting moves.
Now, I have to ask this question. So, in the Omega Glory, there's a scene where Captain Kirk throws his ass at Captain Ron Tracy. Is that in the book?
Oh, no, actually. Mostly because I could not come up with a pithy name for it that did not run afoul of standards and practices.
Oh.
I had to settle on 12 different techniques, we'll call them loosely.
Nice.
And I'm being very charitable. But I mean, I gave them names like, you remember Journey to Babel, where he's fighting the fake Andorian?
Climbs the wall.
And he climbs the wall and uses the wall to get at him. I call that the Jimmy Wallbanger.
Oh, I love it.
And then there's the scene in the Apple where they're fighting the natives, and he basically rolls forward and takes the legs out from somebody. I call that Rolling Thunder.
I love it.
And then there's so it's, and of course the Gorn is in there with the where he earboxes him. I think I call it the box lunch or something like that. I mean, it's the beauty of the book is that I wrote the text and I played it almost completely straight in terms of the delivery of the instructions on how to carry out the different moves. And then each move is described in a series of diagrams, 2 to 4 step-by-step diagrams. And the whole thing is just so absurd. I actually pitched it half jokingly and was surprised when they went for it. Like, wow. Oh, now I got to actually write the damn thing. No, I was hoping they would go for it because I wanted to do something fun and lighthearted and silly and kind of, I don't want to poke fun at Star Trek. I mean, there's humor there inherent in the material without being cruel or poking fun. I'm not laughing at it. I'm laughing with it.
Nice.
So it'll be fun. So, and in fact, I think it comes out the same week that the next gen book comes out. So I'll have a fun April.
Wow. Okay.
We will have copies for STLB next year.
Nice.
Awesome.
And where can people find all the wordiness of Dayton Ward?
You can find me on the intrawebs by going to the Googles and typing in DaytonWard.com. And that will take you to my landing page for my social media platform, and I use that word in air quotes.
Nice.
You can find links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, my blog, and the other sites that I write for on a semi-regular basis, like StarTrek.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dayton. We hope that you'll be willing to come back again and referee one of these and deal with the chaos.
I would totally come back and do this again. This was fun.
Excellent. All right, man.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Dan, of course, we have to thank our friends, the band 5 Year Mission, without whom this podcast would not sound anywhere near as awesome. Somebody on Twitter this week said that they discovered 5 Year Mission through us, and now they are huge fans. And I guarantee that everybody else is going to be too. Please head on out over to 5yearmission.net, download Year 4, or buy a CD copy of Year 4. It is a fantastic album. This is not a parody of Star Trek. These are brand new original songs that look at each episode and give you kind of a different way to think about it. They are fantastic compositions performed by wonderful musicians and friends of ours, and we guarantee you're going to love it. So, Dan, that's 5yearmission.net. Go get some tunes in your ear holes, yo.
Absolutely. Lots of albums to choose from. There could be some new ones coming down the road at some point. I don't know. But, we just had a great discussion with season 4 of Deep Space Nine, Bill. And like I said, I think it's one of the greatest seasons of them all, and for good reason. But I think it's missing a key hidden episode that not too many people know about. So I'd love to tell you about it.
I have a feeling I don't have much of a choice.
You don't have much of a choice. It's very similar to The Ascension, which was a great episode, and I've grown to love that one. But it's got this weird twist in it. Indeed, someone came through the wormhole claiming to be the emissary. Again, Cisco and this mysterious figure visited the prophets to find out exactly who it was that was to speak for them. But in this episode, Bill, you can stop smiling. This person was sent back to his own time to complete the coveted Year 5 album that had gone uncompleted for so many centuries. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to the prophets, Farquarim Lan was sent back to complete his destiny as drummer extraordinaire. And I thank the prophets because your ear holes will enjoy it when Year 5 is finished. So, it's Farquarim Lan.
I want to point out that your Dejara would have you cleaning toilets. Yeah, so that's 5yearmission.net. Please download their music, become big fans, because we are too. Dan, next week, simply put, it's Star Trek's finest hour.
Yeah, you're not going to get any argument from me, man. We just got done discussing this episode in See It or Skip It with Dayton, and I went as far to say that it may be the best episode of Trek ever. So next week, we're going to deep dive into the amazing episode that is The Visitor. What makes this episode so special? What makes it one of the best? Well, tune in next week on Trek Geeks, your independent Star Trek podcast.
You know, whenever I watch this episode, I need a box of Kleenex. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that I'm going to need one just for recording our conversation about it next week.
Yeah.
It is that important an episode in Deep Space Nine and in Star Trek. And I think it tells Star Trek's greatest love story, like I said earlier. So that's next week here on Trek Geeks. Dan, for more great Star Trek discussion, we want everyone to check out the Tricorder Transmissions online at the tricordertransmissions.com. Congratulations to Marina and Jesse, who have taken over the reins on Shore Leave. The brand new hosts. They're going to do a fantastic job over there, and we can't wait to hear what they have in store. But of course, so many great podcasts over at Tricorder Transmissions, whether it's the brand new Queer Trek or Weekly Trek or Drawing Trek. You see a trend here?
That's a lot of Trek.
Yeah, Shore Leave, like we mentioned. Of course, our friends at Trek Profiles and Trek Ranks, respectively. Just download all of their stuff. We guarantee there's something you're going to love. And of course, Dan, for all the news on all the Star Treks, please visit our good friends at treknews.net. For now, this has been episode 149 of the Trek Geeks podcast. We do hope you all live long and prosper.
I wish I had some dramatic music here. I mean, he's one of them. Gowron, the leader of the Klingon Empire, is a coconut.
I can believe that. Yeah, no, those crazy eyes? Yep.
Glory to you and
your coconut.
Music for Trek Geeks is provided by 5 Year Mission. They are writing one song for each episode of the original series. Download their music at 5yearmission.net. Trek Geeks, a Star Trek podcast, is a production of Coconut Media Works, executive producer Bill Smith. For even more Star Trek discussion, check out Discovering Trek, a Star Trek Discovery companion, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and discoveringtrek.com.
Bing bong.
You okay?
I'm fine. How are you?
That was a little squeaky.
I got to mix it up every now and then.
Should be like bing bong.
Like what? Like what?
Bing bong.
See, I don't have boomerang and stuff right here in this chat window. So, I mean, the only way I can see that over and over is to get you to do it over and over.
Dude, I'm shredded.
You're what?
Shredded.
Shredded?
I could like fall asleep just sitting here right now.
But yet there you are drinking margarita.
Well, it's me.
Better podcasting through libation.
I love it. I like that a lot.
That should be the official motto of this podcast.
How are you? How are you?
I'm well.
Your face is well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, my wife and I were in the Atlanta area last weekend.
Yes, I do.
Which was a great time with family.
Good.
I got to say, I have my niece and nephew now have families of their own. So now I have great nieces and great nephews, and what a bunch of fun, good-natured kids. It was a great weekend.
So you mean second generation nieces and nephews, not just that they're awesome.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, but they are awesome.
They absolutely are. Okay. All 6 of them. They are just a bunch of fun kids, and we laughed a lot all weekend long and had lots of great new memories formed. So it was fantastic.
Awesome. That's always good to hear. I always liked the Atlanta area. My brother went to Georgia Tech, so I would drive down there, or I would fly down there every year when his school got out for the summer. And I'd go down there a day or so early, and we'd do stuff around town. And then we'd drive his car back home to New Hampshire, which was always quite an interesting escapade.
That's a very carefully selected word, my friend.
It was a 1976 or maybe 80s Buick Regal. And one year the air conditioner wasn't working. That was fun. And we used to have his big giant boombox in the middle of the big seat in the front playing Pat Benatar and Stevie Nicks for most of the trip home.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
And it was before cell phones. So the one time where we decided to drive later than we told my folks, my dad had the Virginia State Police out looking for us because he thought we might have been in an accident.
Well, no air conditioning leaving Atlanta in May when Tech gets out for the year. That had to be horrible.
It wasn't fun. And it was also like if it rained and the windows would fog up, there was nothing to like clear it out. So it was always good too.
Well, someday you may get the chance to make that drive again.
Why? No. For you, anything, my man.
Except that.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'll do it for Kelly.
Oh,
or
what
Abby.
A sweetheart. Oh, yeah. You should absolutely do it for them. Don't do a damn thing for me.
No, I do enough for you here on this very podcast.
Well, thank you. You and your magnanimous ways. Oh, luminous one, to steal a line from Battlestar Galactica.
Wow. By your command.
But I am the executive producer, as you like to point out, all too often.
Yeah.
I miss that guy.
I miss him too. Golly. Jeez.
I miss that guy. So yeah, we're back and stuff.
Yeah.
It sucks that my travel schedule caused this episode to be slightly delayed this week, but
that's okay. Hey, at least we're putting something out, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All right.
And it's going to be fun because it's Cedar Skip It. It's not just a fan favorite, people.
It's a Dan favorite.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Here's what I have to know. So you, of course, do a Friday commute celebration lip sync with me just about every week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you've been holding out.
Why?
On doing Michael Jackson songs till you find your sequin glove.
Yes.
Where is this effing thing?
I thought it was in the hutch that we now have in the new house. And I went into the drawer the other night. I'm like, oh, I got to get the glove. And it wasn't there. So I have not gotten rid of it. I know that. And I will find it. And it will be a magical moment when I find it and we can record Michael Jackson for the Friday Commute celebration.
Magical for whom?
For you, because you're going to be like, oh my God, he's as good as he says he is. And it's funny because yesterday, as we record this, was Michael Jackson's birthday. So on Sirius XM, they had all kinds of Michael songs playing. And as I was driving home, Bad was on. And dude, I was killing it, lip syncing to that.
I wish you still had the jacket.
Yeah, me too. I had both the Thriller jacket and the Beat It jacket, and they're gone. I think they were gone when the folks moved out of the original house years ago.
How do pictures of these not exist?
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but years and years ago, there was a Halloween party at the Nashua Country Club when my folks were members there. And I went as Michael. I got the wig, I got the makeup, jacket, shoes, socks, glove, and I had a light makeup because he had a lighter complexion as an African American. And one of the friends of the family went, and he went as Mr. T, and he had the darker makeup. It was perfect, and it was the funnest Halloween party I have ever been to. It was great. I was out there dancing all night, having a blast, and I have no pictures of it.
Can you moonwalk?
I could back when I was lighter.
So now you're saying you'd need to be on the moon to moonwalk.
If I was on a slippery enough floor and my shoes weren't very rubbery soled, I probably could still do it. Standing on the toes, though, like I used to be able to, is not happening unless my ankles snap like two pieces of paper brought together and folded.
Like a pencil.
Like a pencil, exactly. Yes. So
we need to get you to do this in Vegas.
If I have enough of these in me, I might be able to.
I was just going to say, it's going to take some of that. But as he drinks his margarita.
Yes.
I'm drinking water.
Mm-hmm. Very nice Trek Geeks logo there, too. I like that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah. But no, it was fun. I had a good time. As a matter of fact, just a couple of years ago when my wife had her work Christmas party, I did a whole routine of Gangnam Style. and had the whole place like roaring. And I was talking to another woman who worked there who was a professional dancer, and we were going to do Michael Jackson the next Christmas, but she ended up leaving the company before it happened.
Did she go into witness protection after that? Because I would have after you made that offer.
Oh, it wasn't my offer. She wanted to do it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's the story you tell now.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It would have been very fun. It would have been cool. We were going to do Thriller, the whole dance and everything.
Oh God, we have to make one of these. People can't see you, but you're doing it right now.
Exactly. Hey, look at. Okay, now I got a backup dancer, and you just signed on right now.
I have no idea what you're talking about. All right, are you ready to do this? There,
I am
King of Pop.
Let's do.
I take that's a yes.
It is.